watching the Evercade effect.
Hey everybody, this is Ed from the Evercade effect, and today I'm going to talk about why we're not going to see, an Evercade 2.0 console. First, I'm going to define what that is, what I think Blaze is going to do, and like the thumbnail says, just hear me out, because I think I kind of have a different perspective and reasons kind of behind it. So first off, let me go ahead and define what I mean by 2.0 console. So what I mean is like a significant upgrade, right? And the example that I'll use is remember when Nintendo came out and we got Super Nintendo. That upgrade from 18-bit to 16-bit was huge, and I'll even go out and make a bold statement and say that throughout retro gaming history, that was definitely one of the major upgrades you could really see, like with the Super Nintendo and the graphics and everything. And so, kind of taking it in the Evercade space, what I mean by that is that if we were going to get a 2.0 console, that would mean, we could play Sega Saturn games, we could play PlayStation 2 games, possibly PlayStation 3, maybe GameCube. Those next gen consoles is what I'm specifically talking about here. And honestly, I don't think that we're going to see that. For number one, Blaze's focus. Blaze Entertainment are the good folks behind the Evercade. They've always been focused on 8 16-bit. I almost just made up 18-bit, 32-bit, and a tiny dabble in 64-bit because of Glover. Unless they really shift their focus, and we'll kind of get into that. They haven't really been focused on like those next gen consoles, like your Dreamcast, PS2, and everything else. And I know some people are wanting that. I'm in the camp of I like their original mission statement of kind of going back and exploring up until like the 16-bit era. Sprinkle in a little bit of 32-bit because we get some Game Boy Advance. Because that was a certain time, kind of growing up, in the 80s, even before the 80s, and just to get into experience, those awesome retro games. That's what I mean by a 2.0 console, a significant upgrade. Now we'll get to in a second. What I think we might see is a Pro model and some other things I could see, Blaze Entertainment doing with Evercade along that. And so probably the biggest elephant in the room of why I don't think that's going to happen, quite frankly, cost, right? I think that's kind of the biggest thing, cost, and then also alienating customers. And we'll get into that. I honestly think if they were going to make a powerful enough emulation machine by today's standards, which they could also run indie games and everything else with the tariffs and the current state that we're in, we're at least be looking at like $200, maybe even more, right? So don't forget, like the Evercade Alpha, that's like over $300. Yes, I'm getting a mini arcade cabinet, but that thing is freaking expensive. And while you may ask yourself and be like, well, no, a VS isn't going to have wood and all that other stuff that like goes into it, and not going to have a screen, except for the handheld model. But still, it's going to be expensive because for them to do a significant upgrade, they're going to go older technology, but it's got to be newer older tech, right? So that's kind of the first thing, is that if you look at the current market, are people really going to pay between $200 and $250 for like an Evercade 2.0? I think that's just beyond reach. One of the things that makes Evercade so great is its current price point with the tariffs. I think pushing everything up to like $130 that's kind of really at the limit. We used to have that with the OGVS. I believe you could get it with 2 controllers and 2 games for around that price. But this is just pretty much just getting a bare console, or if you want a game with it, then it's a little bit more, depending if you get like the gray model minus R. So I think that's one big reason. So if Blaze does that, they need, they can't just sell a new console and not put out those kind of games, right? So then they're going to have to go after more licenses. I know like a lot of PS2 games, there's a lot of like music licensing with that. That would just make it more difficult. And then the carts themselves are probably going to cost more. And so I honestly believe that really prices Blaze off from doing it. So I don't see us going down that, on that route. Yes, would it be cool to get some like more popular indie games and Unity and all that? Yes. But when you kind of like look at devices like a Steam Deck on the higher end, LCD models have come down cheaper with that. The Retroid 5, there's other devices that can use Portmaster and kind of do those things. So I think at least for the next few years, until the market settles down, until things get cheaper, I just don't really see, I just don't really see that happening. Here's what I do see to be possible. I do see like an Evercade Pro model, because I was mentioned earlier about alienating customers. If they did come out with that newer console, that would be another downside, right? And I'll get why how that ties in the Pro model here in a second, because then to play those newer carts, you're going to have the newer console. Those newer carts that I'd say that would do like Dreamcast or PS2 emulation, they're not going to work on the VSs or EXPs. And we kind of had this happen before where customers already felt alienated when the VS came out with the dual slots, unlocking games, be able to plug in any controllers. And then again with the EXP, the OG EXP with Capcom games being on there, embedded in it and nowhere else. So this really wouldn't be good. So reason why I bring that up with the Pro model is that wouldn't alienate any customers, right? You're just getting kind of like a more value add. You would still be able to play all the carts. I mean, hell, even like on the OG Evercades right there behind me, pretty much you can play all the carts still until they change that. So Blaze has been very good about not alienating their customers for carts. Yes, you could play games on the Super Pocket. Some games I don't know why you'd want to on a smaller screen, but that's not here or there. So with the Pro model, you would still be able to play all the games. I think that's what's really important, the compatibility. But you might get some bonus features. I could see the Pro model, maybe them stretching that out to 150 to 160, because they would have to implement some things like Bluetooth, right? Like if they're going to do that, maybe they add Bluetooth support, let you plug in and use wireless controllers. But then that's even going to still cost more money. Here's like Bluetooth would be nice to be able to turn it off remotely, and all that and all that would be nice. So that they could do some fancy things that way. Really, for this model, adding more of a hard drive space. So yeah, we could see a pro model with official controllers. Here's how I think they would do the Pro model. I think what they would do is they would rebrand it as a VS Pro. However, have the controllers, function in the same way that this controller does. The 8BitDo controller, and we have like the little, like the brick that plugs in. So I could see them kind of doing more of a bundle, right? Where it would be the Pro model, it would come with this, everything would be officially Evercade branded. They're going to come out with a new firmware. You could remotely shut it down, and it's going to have a new skin and everything, right? And it's gonna look awesome. Maybe they do look a new background and everything, kind of like they did with the limited editions, but they call it the Pro model. And then of course you could still buy the brick, and you could buy everything else separately. But Blaze isn't really changing anything, right? They're not really changing the hardware, because that's gonna go ahead and cost more money. And I think while some people really want to have a VS2 and to be able to play all those other games, I mean, Blaze doesn't need to do that to get licenses and to make money. I mean, this year alone has proven they've gotten the Microsoft license. We're getting the Activision collection. They've gotten, they've gotten Rare. I mean, how awesome is that? They've got Neo Geo. We have Taito cards. I bet next year we're going to get Capcom cards. I really feel this year in 2025 has been a major breakthrough, and Blaze is getting those licenses. I honestly think that if they were to do some R&D and invest in a console, that's going to cost a lot of money. I think that's going to be too big of a hit. I don't think they're ready for it. They may be developing something now. So, and then what I maybe could see along the lines of kind of, again, being a Pro model would be, those guys behind me. The exact same thing, just a bigger LCD. And the battery life matches the LCD, and it's USB-C. And that's another thing they would do too with the Pro model. They would make it USB-C. They'd have built-in Bluetooth. They'd also offer official controllers that would work with this for the older ones. All that stuff would be more realistic at the $150, $160 price point. They have many different options. I think there are some people, there is a market for maybe getting just a bigger screen, but it would pretty much be the same handheld. And that's why I say everything would more be a 1.5, not really a 2.0 upgrade. And again, Blaze doesn't need to. They've got the licenses. And with the licenses, I bring that up again because could you imagine next year, like a special edition Neo Geo VSR, EXPR? I bet they're also going to have an alpha. Why not? They're just saving that for next year. We'll probably see all that stuff. I don't know if Rare is popular enough. Maybe if we get Perfect Dark, maybe they release that as a console. last special edition console that was limited to 2,000 copies was the Duke Nukem, and that sold out instantaneously. So I think I see Blaze kind of going along the lines of doing that, coming out with more limited edition consoles, maybe just making it more of a pro model. But for them to go a full 2.0, that's going to be ginormous on undertaking on their part. And I really think in this state and age and economy, it's just going to cost them too much money. But let me know in the comments below. Let me know what do you think? How do you think about or feel about rather Blaze coming out with kind of these pro models, reskins? Would you rather just have everything be accessories? Let me know in the comments below. I would really love to hear your opinions. And thanks so much for watching. I'm going to thank my channel members now, and bye-bye. Thanks, Crashline, Immortal Sojourn, Amber Cummings, Joe Whitlush, Alex Groot.